wrestling fans.
Are you ready? Let me tell you something, brother. British Wrestling's very own Steve Saxon presents the iSax Wrestling Podcast. It's just one more platform for him to get his shit in.
And welcome back. Welcome back to the iSax Wrestling Podcast. This is episode 2. Amazing, we made it. I didn't really have much choice. This is cheating a little bit. First 2 episodes of the iSax Wrestling Podcast available immediately on iTunes to download. Of course, it should help my ratings. But the main reason is that I allowed the Klondyke Kate Superstar interview at the end of the pilot episode, episode 1, to run over a lot. My bad, my fault. So I've had to clip the interview down into, this is the second part of the interview. It's well worth listening to. If you've just happened to stumble across this episode first, before the pilot episode, before episode 1, then pause this. Go back, download episode 1, listen to that one first, then come back to this one. You will thank me later. So, just like I explained on the pilot episode, the iSax Wrestling Podcast isn't just strictly about wrestling. We are throwing in there a little bit of music as well. Music from local bands, local artists in the northwest of England, North Wales, who are trying to make a name for themselves. On the pilot episode, you may have heard, if not, go back, download, listen, come back. You would have heard the band called Law. That's L-O-R with their debut single of Shadows, an excellent sound. So I'd like for you to check out a band that have been in touch with me called the Black Neon Knights. That's Knights with a K. They're from Liverpool. They're a 4-piece rock band from Liverpool that formed in 2013. They brought out an album in February 2016 called Dawn of the Night. And the song I'm going to play you now is one of the songs from Dawn of the Night album called Rise Up. It's a great sound. I love a bit of rock. Hopefully you do too. Check this out. And then straight after this, we will crack on with the second part of the Klondyke Kate interview. Enjoy.
Resurrection and spice, you got full of fire, ignite, be born from the ashes. Rise up, getting in a good light. 2 times could have been the whole night. Rise up, here comes the sunlight. Yeah. 'Cause if you believe in something, believe in something real. 'Cause if you believe in something, believe in something real.
there we have it. The Black Neon Knights with Rise Up. They're from Liverpool. Liverpool's notorious for their music, so if you see their name on a poster locally, get to one of their shows. Get to their YouTube channel, you'll find a load of their past material on there and some of their current stuff. They are working on a new album at the moment, so keep your eye peeled for that. So they're the Black Neon Knights, Knights with a K. Check them out on Facebook at The Real BNK. Check them out on YouTube, search for the Black Neon Knights, and on Twitter they are at BNK Liverpool.
This is Klondyke Kate, and you've been listening to the Isaacs Wrestling Podcast.
So now it's time for the second half of the Klondyke Kate Jane Hansford interview. I started it last show and we had to roll it over, as I said a couple of times, because my timings are rubbish, something I am working on, but it's a great listen. Check this out, stick around at the end, I'm going to give the plugs and we'll let you know what's coming next on the Isaacs Wrestling Podcast. What's something you said there, when you first broke out in the business? So I've done a bit of research on you, of course, and you began your career when you were 14 years old in 1977?
Yeah, 77. I went to a wrestling show at the Horseshoe Bar in Blackpool. I was in Blackpool for the day. I didn't particularly go to see wrestling because I actually didn't know there were any girl wrestlers. I used to go to the Victoria Hall in Hanley and watch joint promotions, and I watched that from when I was about 9. I used to go to that hall religiously every week. And it was then every week, so I used to go there and saw men wrestling. Thought, God, I'm the wrong sex, I'm watching this. But what I did do was I wasn't watching so much the wrestlers. I was watching crowd reaction and stuff. I kind of watched a bit of everything, and watched all these villains winding people up and how they wound them up and how good they were at doing it. I watched the good, the bad, and obviously the ugly. And I just watched it all and thought, wow, God, I'm the wrong sex. I'd love to do this. And then I went to Blackpool in 77 at the start of the season, and I've got this white dress on, and I sat in the front row, and I actually can't remember the other guy that was on, but one was Crusher Mason, who later became one of my best friends, ever. Loved him to bits, and he actually bled in the ring and fell out the ring, and as he landed on the floor, he landed in my lap, and all this claret went all over over my dress and everything. And I'm 14, so I'm thinking to myself, Gobby Cow then. So I thought, right, I went up to Bobby Barron, who was then running shows. And these shows are fabulous. There's like 600 people in each time, and he's doing 3 and 4 shows a day. So, this place was buzzing, absolutely buzzing. And they were actually taking... what do you call them? They were taking on people out the crowd to wrestle at the booths. And actually, in 77... they were all straight, every one of them. They're just people who'd come up, and Crusher would go in the ring with them, Jimmy Monroe would go in the ring with them, all the ones that had done amateur and stuff, they'd go in the ring with these straights and work with them and stop them from, obviously none of them ever won, ever. The guys that were doing it were really good. And so I'm kind of watching all this, but this was an ordinary match, and I'd gone to Bobby Barron and said, look at the state of my dress, blah blah blah. What are you going to do about it? I want to cleaning. So we got chatting away, and I told him I was interested in wrestling. I looked no different than I look today. I was just plain up and down. Chubby kid, and I bet he looked at me and thought, Christ, what do I want this for? When I know the girls that I saw that day were the most beautiful girls, Rusty Blair, Cherokee Princess, they were stunning, absolutely stunning looking, figures to die for, and I thought, Jesus Christ, I look like a lad compared to these. So, but no, and he said, well, come back next week and we'll give you a go. And I think he thought, that's her gone, we've got rid of her. Week after week after week, I went back all summer until it come to the August, and they finally let me come into the ring. And I went in, and Tony Francis slammed me, and I broke my ankle.
Bloody
Then
hell.
gone straight underneath me, broke my ankle. It's the only bone I've ever broken in the business ever, apart
So,
from my fingers.
you said you kept on going back week after week. Were you going back to Blackpool week after week?
Yeah, week after week from Stoke, I'd get the train up, I'd go up there, I'd try and get the last train back, and I'd come back. And most of the time, they weren't having any of it. I just obviously didn't look the part, and I've got no family in the wrestling business. I've never had any, anything to do with it, any experience apart from the watching of it and the loving of it. So, I think they just kept on, and it was Crusher actually that said, give her a chance. I just want you to give her a chance because she's been coming up week after week after week, and he was there every week. So they let me in. I broke my ankle. Off I go. 6 weeks. Season's finished. I'm back after 6 weeks. I'm back up to Blackpool, murdering Bobby Barron, who's now running evening shows. They're like, well, this girl isn't going to go away. So that was it then. They took me on in earnest. And my first match was against Cherokee Princess and a new girl that came and went because I think she lasted about 3 weeks. And she got no prospect at all. She was bloody awful. So they sacked her off, and off she went. But Rusty Blair was my partner, and from that day on, what they saw in me, I think, was I was absolutely shit in the ring. There was no two ways about that. But I started to work the crowd straight away, and obviously, I think in my life this was going to be my forte, was working a crowd and the psychology of it, not so much the wrestling, because I think what I know about wrestling you could write on a postage stamp, but as for everything else, I think that was what I think it was going to be the thing for me over the years, was working a crowd, and it was down to Crusher Mason that I ended up working. Funny enough, years later, it was down to Crusher Mason that I made a comeback. I was never going to come back and work, and he talked me into it. And actually, from then on to when I retired out of the ring, those were the best days of my life. They were the real sort of times that I enjoyed, and I travelled the world. So I have retired a couple of times, but I've never stayed away. This is the longest I've actually stayed out of a ring, and this time I don't think I'll be getting back in.
I don't think. They're the key words. I don't think. A wrestler never retires, Jay. A wrestler never retires.
You don't ever retire. But I think for me, what I would like to do is to be going in as a valet or going in as a manager, and that kind of thing, I think is for me now, because I kind of feel I've lost Klondyke Kate with a lot of the weight loss. I kind of think Klondyke Kate's sort of gone in a suitcase now and isn't coming out again. So that sort of cloak on me was my I don't know. It's like wearing a cloak, and you could go in. I could go in and do what I wanted and not think about it now. But that confidence as a big woman, as a massive woman, as Klondyke Kate, has now gone. So it's fine. It's really hard to explain. I think this is more for somebody who's sort of kind of lost weight and done this kind of thing, that they know what I'm talking about. But it's very hard to sort of go from one person to somebody else and lose that other persona, and I feel like I've lost that. So, not sadly, it's not a sad thing. I've got lots of good memories, but I just kind of don't think Klondyke Kate will be making an appearance as a wrestler again. So,
and sometimes that's not bad. I mean, you were, as you said, you were a great heel, a great villain in the business, and that's what basically got you bookings for a number of years. That was back then. This is now. It's 2017. The business has changed. British wrestling has changed. You're still very much looked at as the hierarchy of British wrestling. Yourself and the likes of Johnny Saint, Marty Jones, Keith Myatt, Frankie Sloan, Robbie Brooks. The list could go on and on and on.
God, I just think I couldn't even lace their boots, let alone most of those that you've mentioned. I feel I couldn't lace the boots because their minds for wrestling are phenomenal, So,
well, you must have something there, Jay. I mean, I will go back onto your earlier career momentarily, but
yeah,
recently, obviously on New Year's Eve, we had the relaunch of World of Sport on ITV, and I went to those tapings. I saw you there briefly before I got ushered along. you were involved with that, and the powers within the British wrestling business that were involved with ITV and the ITV executives obviously came to you for a reason. There's a reason you were sat front and centre throughout that entire show, was because of your days as Klondyke Kate and because of what you've still got to offer this business as Jane Hansford.
Well, I think as well the fact that I was probably the first girl. Well, no, probably about it. I was the first girl to actually wrestle on the show. That the women that had been on before had been managers. Drew McDonald's partner, Monica,
Yep.
had been a manager on there. Paula Valdez, who was at one point Dave Finley's wife, was Dave Finley's manager, but none of them actually got in the ring and wrestled, and that was the one thing that I was really proud of doing. I did do it, and it was something I'd watched from a child. My grandmother was into it, or, all the typical stereotypical stuff, that the old granny watching it, getting all excited.
Doing the knitting, yeah.
That's right, me then learning to love it from that and what have you. So to meet all those people once I got into the wrestling business, and then to be accepted eventually, to be one of them, is the absolute God. It's the highlight of my life, because I look at a photograph that was taken at the World of Sport on the tapings, the new one, and I'm stood there amongst Rocco, Marty Jones, Johnny Saint, totally accepted to be there, and that still blows my mind. 40 years on, my mind gets blown by being around people who who were my heroes and still my heroes. Johnny Saint out in America now, at the training centre at WWE, should he not be there? He is the most amazing ambassador of wrestling ever, and what he does, God almighty, blows my mind when I watch him, And people who say, oh, I prefer watching Cowboys and Indians, villain, heel, and watching him move is like, God, I can't explain to you. I wish in my life I could have been a quarter of a wrestler that he is, still to this day.
Still to this day, yeah. I watched the video just 2 nights ago.
Yeah, I'm sure he's in his 70s. He's got to be about 74.
I think you're right, yeah.
That man is as fit as a fiddle. I watched him do some training, and I watched him set them up to do cardio first before they did the wrestling training, and he did everything he asked of everybody in that room, and some of them were blowing out their arses, and that man was still going.
I think we may have seen the same video. I think that's the same one I was about to mention then, yeah. It's amazing seeing he's hitting the ropes, he's taking, he's not taking big back bumps, but he's still taking the back bump.
No.
He's 74 years old, for God's sake.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And me at 55, I feel like an old crow now at 55. So God knows, he has kept so fit over the years. He's attached himself, and biggest respect to him. And Rocco's another one.
Rocco looks great. He looks great.
Watching him, I don't think I could shut my mouth when I was watching him, especially in the early years when I came and he stood and all this bit of jumping off the top ropes and all, and I'm thinking, wow, where's all this come from? People think Japan started it and all that, but they didn't. There was so much going on. There was so much going on late sort of 70s that was already changing wrestling. So and then Dynamite Kid coming along and all that. I can't fault what's gone on in the past. But it's sort of I still believe, truthfully, I believe it's shaped the future. And I do get pissed, and people say, well, that was then, this is now. We've done this, we've done that. Yeah, and I respect every single bit of it. But it's those guys that put it all forward for us.
Of course, they paved the way.
Yeah.
You guys paved the way for this generation of wrestlers, without a doubt.
And life is faster now, and but I feel life's easier. We travelled on roads. I can actually remember them building the M40, the M40, the M42. There's only the M6, and I was still travelling down the A5 to London when I first started wrestling. That makes me sound like I'm an old bloody crow, but that's exactly what we were doing. At one point we used to have to go to any South Coast show. We used to have to drive through London. always, and it was a bloody nightmare. It was 9 hours, you know, from Stoke-on-Trent down to Brighton, say, and stuff like that. 9-10 hours, just horrendous. So life's easier now for us, faster, of course, yeah. But how we can get to places, what we can do when we get there, is a million times different now than it was back in them days, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly
Bloody
easier
hell,
for the
I
wrestling.
think you could never say that, Steve. Never say that.
I mean, it's certainly, you're right, it's certainly easy for wrestling fans to follow this business now because of social media. I mean, I can sit here in Wales and I can watch a show that's going on in London from sat in my armchair on my hand, on my device or on my laptop.
You can watch a show going on in Japan,
exactly.
never mind it in London, you know, so
It is, I mean, it's great for the wrestling business, it's great for the wrestling fans that there's so many different platforms out there now where they can go get their fix. If they can't make it to a local show, or if they can't travel to a show within Britain, at least they still got access to that. So
that's right,
it's great the way that the business has moved on. And I said to you before, you know, it's great that you've moved with this business. I know you were a little bit sceptical many years ago, like a lot of the old crew used to be.
I was,
but you've changed. You've realised, well, okay, I'm still passionate about this business. I still love this business. I've seen the way it's going. So maybe if I can have a little bit of input, and then you'll still get your fix. You can teach people. You can mentor people. One thing that I did notice at the World of Sport tapings, Viper. Now, Viper, that's the first time I've ever seen her work live. I've seen her on social media and what have you, and I've always appreciated and enjoyed her work. Very much like yourself, she's not your typical female wrestler or personality. She's not the size 6 or size 8. She doesn't come down and full of feather boas and with a big glamorous style. She comes down there, she's a big old girl, she kicks off, she knows her shit, and she does it very, very well.
She's absolutely awesome. I first time I met her was at the tapings, but I'd spoke to her once again on social media, and I'd watched her, and I'd seen ICW, and I happened to just click something on, don't even know what it was, and she was on, and I thought, wow, I love this girl, bloody hell, you know, and for her size and for the things she did, for me, she's surpassed anything I've ever done in the ring. Watching her work and how she moves around, absolutely fantastic. And for her to come to me and ask for my advice, you know, it made me feel $1 million. You know, she said it made her feel the same, but you know, when you watch somebody and you know that they're going to be absolutely bloody brilliant, you know, whatever they do, she is going to. I can't not foresee her having a you know, being with the WWE. I think they should snap her up because the things they could do with her is absolutely unbelievable. And also a nice, humble girl. Take no shit off nobody, which is great, but humble as in will listen to what people say to her, takes advice. If she doesn't want to take it on, she doesn't take it on, but she knows who to listen to, you know, and this is the thing. This is who you find you need to trust to listen to and take on board. But like you say, everything's a learning curve, so... But I'm watching her. Oh my God, I absolutely adore her.
I could tell that at World Sport. I mean, I was sat just to your right, just slightly behind you, and you stood up throughout her entire match, and you were there as Klondyke. She was the big villain Viper, and you stood there on your feet throughout the entire match with this smile on your face that just said it all, that you were so proud. And you were the first woman to appear on World of Sport in the ring. She was the first woman, along with Alexis Rose, of course, to actually have a singles match on World of Sport. So you two have so much in common. And you can see that. You were so proud.
At first, I wasn't sure about the matchmaking because I thought the matchmaking could have been a bit different than it was for the girls, but after seeing it, I was really proud of the pair of them. They were really, you know, they just worked their arse off in that ring, and I actually stood up because I've got butterflies in my stomach watching Viper. It was Viper that had my eye all the way through. You know, I loved the entrance, everything about the pair of them. I loved, but Viper for me was the standout girl, and she was not only that, but she'd actually asked permission if she could use some of my moves, and I went, they're not my moves, darling. You do what you want to do.
It's good that she recognised that you use these certain moves and that she had the respect to actually ask for your consent. That's nice. That's nice.
She asked me, and I said, bloody hell, what an honour. No, they're not my moves, darling. Go and do what you want to do. But to be asked that and to watch her do stuff, God, and I've seen her do stuff since as well. She is so bloody awesome. She's out in Japan all the time. I really think WWE should snap her up. Really, if I have ever had any say in anything, if I had it, she would be up there with them now. You know,
you've got a few friends that work over in the developmental over there at the moment, Jane. Maybe you can have a word with one or two of those. Get her over there.
Well, I've done it in the past. I've always said to people who I know about people who I think are awesome, you know, and now and again they have looked at them and stuff, you know, but I kind of think they know exactly what they're doing. It's just nudging people to find them in the first place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I would never presume to say, oh, you should do this. But what I do say is, have you seen this person? Have you seen this person? And that's what I actually do. That when I feel that, you know, I feel that there's something special there. That's what I do.
I mean, it's great to see the influence that us Brits actually have over in WWE at the moment. I mean, you think of their developmental program alone. I mean, you got Regal, obviously, who's heavily involved.
Yeah, but Steve, it's not at the moment. For what people over here never understood was Americans were absolutely in awe. Years ago, never mind now, years and years and years ago, of people that were working over in Britain, and loads of people came over who have since been big and not been big and then been big again, you know, and they were so in awe of the way the Brits worked and the style they worked that they wanted to come over and learn that style, and you know, we all go, oh wow, we'd love to be doing the American stuff, we'd love to be over in the WWE, but they were actually wanting to be part of what was going on in Britain, and that was 20 years ago, you know, and now what's happening now is Brits are getting rewarded with being, you know, used in shows over here, which is absolutely fantastic. Great for not even to take them over there, to use them over here in their own country, is phenomenal, you know, and I'm really pleased that that's what they're doing. These new things that are going on in the country with WWE coming along and WAW, how big they've become, you know, that these companies are making wrestling fabulous for everybody, you know, and giving lots and lots of Brits the opportunity to do so, you know, big for everybody. There's room for everybody, I think.
There is. And you hit the nail on the head. It says, you know, as from a promoter's point of view, I want to put on my posters the faces of guys, male and female, that are going to draw in the punters. That's my job.
Of course.
Typically, obviously, my roster is 95% British. It always is. But it's, every now and then, I'll have an ex-WWE guy, TNA, Ring of Honor guy, whoever, that'll come over, charge me a ridiculous amount of money, and I can put their picture on the poster. And they do draw in punters. Not all of them, some of them. Now, within this past 12 months or so, actually, before we had this conversation this morning, I've been speaking to we have a small booking committee. We're not even looking at imports anymore. We're looking at, well, let's bring Dave Mastiff in, let's bring Pete Dunne in, let's bring Grado in. You know, 3 completely different workers there, but they're all British, they've all made a name for themselves. Now, the Americans, I'm not saying we'll never use them, I'm not saying that imports don't have a place in British wrestling. They always have, they always will. But now, what's more important to me is I want to showcase British talent, because that's what us Brits, the British fans, want to see now, and it's amazing we've got to this point. We've gone full circle. Where years ago on posters, I love you for doing that, Steve. I love you for doing it, because I think now the talent is so good, and if all the talent we've got, if we can get them out there for people to see, they will become household names, and people will come out to see them. You know, everybody's having it off at the moment, as in really good houses. And I haven't been to anywhere lately where there's been a bad house. You know, I mean, you know how long I've been around. I've seen some dire houses. I've seen some absolutely fantastic houses. So, you know, it swings and roundabouts. But of late, I just think everywhere has just hit the nail on the head, put the right shows on, and been great. You know what I say? I call the
promotions, piss pot promotions. I always
Triple
so
P
does a lot of
promotions.
other people.
Yep.
Yeah, I say PPP. Everybody knows what I mean. But it's getting less and less of that, more and more of people understanding what customers want, what wrestling's about, and also the psychology of it, and the. I kind of still have that old-fashioned idea that you should wind a crowd up. I believe that. I totally think
absolutely.
you should work a crowd and tell a story. I'll never ever feel any different about that. And I feel quite sad when I actually watch a match where there's no crowd participation, or people are not, wrestlers are not getting the crowds to join in with stuff. I kind of find that very hard to take on board, because obviously that was my lifestyle, wasn't it, doing that kind of thing.
Of course.
And I still think you get a buzz from a crowd being hot, and you may think I'm wrong, and a lot of people might do it, but I don't think there's any such cheap heat. I don't believe there is. I believe your heat is what you make your heat. Don't get me wrong. All this, recently I saw somebody spit on a punter, and it absolutely. It blew my head off. I thought that I was totally disgusted.
Yeah, that's crossing the line. That is crossing the line.
That kind of thing. No. But I always feel that the heat you get is from the kind of person you are anyway, So do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. That is my favourite part of the business. With BWP, the bigger we've got, the longer we go, I have more and more guys who kind of, I won't say work for me, but work with me, help me out.
Yeah.
So my individual jobs become less and less. So I've really taken to the writing side of things, character developments, writing storylines, investing in those storylines across a number of shows and matches. I love it, and I think it's fundamental of a show.
Yeah.
I mean, every match should tell its own little story. Every show should be a number of short stories, and then like a year's worth of wrestling, a year's worth of shows. You'll have like this big epic, a big epic story with a beginning and a middle and an end.
Some people can't take that in their head, Steve. So this is where my PPP comes into it.
Yeah.
When people can't take that on board, and also I truly believe, and now this is a bit contradictory, because I truly believe that if to be a good promoter, you've got to have been in the ring at some point, be it a referee, be it a wrestler, especially a wrestler. Obviously for me that would be the number one thing. And why I say it's contradictory, because I spent most of my life working for All Star, which is Brian Dixon, but I kind of.
But didn't Brian Dixon not start his career as a referee for Oric Williams?
He did start as a referee. Actually, he didn't even start as a referee. He started running a fan club called the A to Z fan club. He was actually a fan club runner for Oric, and then he became a referee. But he still had in-ring stuff. He still went in the ring. He refereed and he emceed, but he's never actually wrestled ever. And years ago, I would quite fall out with him on lots of occasions when he said some sort of strange things that I used to think, well, why would this be like this, and why would we? But as the years have gone by, I love the way he runs his shows, because he does tell a story, he does carry things on, very family orientated, which I kind of still like the fact that they are family orientated, but there's also a place for an over 18s kind of work. I find if it is an over 18s, brilliant, but having that distinction is a big thing. You've got to sort of say, well, this is over 18s. It's going to be quite sort of violent, quite different, quite diverse, and the family is where you can go and just take your kids and have that night where you all have a fantastic time, and I just think there's room for everything, and there's room for diversity, and to try and come up with something new is so hard.
Of course.
But wow, it's happening, things are happening all the time, and absolutely good luck to anybody who can bring something new to it, because there's only so much you can do with something, isn't there? So to find something new and to do something with somebody else, and they want to do it wholeheartedly, is brilliant.
It is. And sometimes it's not a case of finding something new, sometimes it's taking and recycling what's old.
Can I just stop you there before I forget and tell you this little story? You'll love this. You will love this, because we went to Ireland with Orig many years ago. God, really, got to be 25, maybe 30 years ago. And we were in this small village, can't name it at all. But when we get there, we're in a little village hall run by the local priest. And the priest turns around and says, no girls. We're having no girls. And why? You know, the town won't like it, blah, blah, blah. So, and this night, it was a knockout and a girls' match and something else going on. And how it worked out, we ended up being short of wrestlers. So what happens is, knockout, Crusher Mason, Jane, tits taped down, man's gear on, mask, who do I work with? And don't forget, at the time, I'm 20 odd stone, I'm apple shaped. So when my boobs were like taped down, I looked even more like an apple. And I went into the tournament and got picked out with Peter Nolte, and I worked with Peter Nolte, and fantastic. Nobody sussed apart from the priest, who actually then being, you know what priests are like, you know, we've got to be judgmental here. They're very contradictory, aren't they?
They are.
As long as nobody knows I'm a woman, it's okay. So, so I'm about 10 minutes into the thing. My bandage starts slipping on my boobs, and I can slowly see one of my left boob getting bigger and bigger. And I've only got little titties, so it's never really made a lot of difference. But it's getting bigger and bigger. And I thought, I've got to go home now because something is going to pop out soon. You couldn't see anything, but just the shape of me was changing, you know. So that was the end. We finished it really quickly. But the guy didn't know it was me in the thing, but just didn't say anything. But bloody hell, and the place was heaving. It was a small village hall, and I think all the old village had turned out for it. So
that's what I mean about Ardwick Village. I was saying before.
Yeah.
You take you to some of these places, really remote areas, and you'd rock up there. I've done a couple of island tours, and I remember one. I don't remember the name of this town, but nobody was there, not a soul. And it was a Sunday show, and we went into a cafe, the one place that was open, and the woman that works in the cafe, we said, "Oh, people don't come out on a Sunday because historically we've been bombed 6 or 7 times, and it's always been on a Sunday." And we're sat in the middle of this bloody town in Ireland, eating whatever we were eating, having a brew. And we're like, we need to get out of here. We went in and we're like, this is going to flop. Who's going to turn up for this? Hal, come 7:30, at the time the doors were, there were close to 1,000 people in that venue. He just seemed to know where to go. He seemed to pick the right places.
Very good at it. And he, you know, Ireland was one of my favourite places. I loved going over there. I was over there. I bet you 2 weeks out of every month I'd be there with him because he did quite a lot of years over there. And I've actually been working. I was over there when the Enniskillen bomb went off. You know,
really?
And we were actually working on their army base. So me and Tina Starr were in the ring, and we had to get stopped. The match got stopped, and we got called out because some people, you know, obviously some of the soldiers had died in the bombing that afternoon, and they came in, and it just went, you know, obviously went flat, and we came out, and it was so sad. But we've also driven off half an hour down the road, and one of the places we've wrestled in has been bombed. You know, so we've just missed that as well. So it's been some scary times there. It's real scary. But I've also been in Beirut when they were about to shut the airport, and they were bombing in the hills. And I got out on the last out on the last plane of the, you know, when they closed the airport down because of the war. So I've been in some dodgy bloody places in my life.
You've got some stories to tell, Jim. On that note of stories to tell, I did read I came across an old newspaper article from the Evening Sentinel in Stoke-on-Trent that you did a few years ago, and actually mentioning there that you're at that time you were sat down about to write your autobiography. How are you getting on with that?
I've dragged my feet desperate with it. I've done about 3 chapters of it, which has been done for quite some time. What I kind of do is I get, as you know, maybe bringing this on, I suffer from depression, and I've suffered from depression since I had my first son, and he's 30 now. So I decided I was going to write this book, and what I wanted to do was, I didn't want it just to be a wrestling book that only wrestling fans could pick up. I wanted it to be a book that anybody could pick up, read about wrestling, not have to know who the people are in it. And also, I was going to talk about my life, about depression, but in a comical way. I didn't want it to be a sad book. There are a lot of sad things in it, but I want it to be quite funny, quite anecdotal, and also somebody can pick up and read and not have to think, well, who's that wrestler? So it was kind of, this has been my hard thing. I could sit down and write anything about wrestling, write this book, but I want this book to be able to go to the wider audience. That's what I want. So it's took me a lot longer. Plus my timeline has been a nightmare because I can't remember bugger all, and I rely on a lot of people coming forward and telling me stories that I've forgotten, and timelines. But there is quite a lot I do remember, but sometimes I can't remember what happened yesterday. So I have to sort of take my time with it, and my concentration isn't fantastic like it used to be. So it's still in the pipeline, and there's people interested in it. But
I think a lot of people would be very interested. I'd certainly be very interested in reading that book. I do love reading biographies on particularly people within the wrestling business.
Yeah.
I've read Oric Williams cover to cover so many times because it's such a short biography. Yeah. Some of the stories he tells you just couldn't make that stuff up. But I would certainly be interested in hearing about you. I tell you what, I've learned so much about you from doing probably about 4 or 5 last Friday night. In fact, my partner Natalie went out. I didn't have the children, so I said, well, you go out with your friends, I'm going to stay in, and I spent the entire Friday night researching you, and I came across some really interesting facts that I never knew about you. I've read little bits in the past. I've got a book on my bookshelf called The Wrestling.
Yeah.
That I must admit, it's not a book I easily got into.
No, it's hard to read.
It's very hard to read. But I still haven't finished it. I did find myself, and I'm not just saying this because it's you I'm talking to at the moment, I did find myself kind of flicking through and reading the snippets from you because obviously I know you personally and I found that interesting. So for you to bring out an autobiography, I think that'd be a really good seller, Jane. And you said not just within the wrestling world, but also in the world, because a lot of people that do suffer with depression. And it's 2017. It's no longer brushed under the carpet. It's no longer just a case of people saying, "Oh, she's in a mood, she'll get over it." It's really taken seriously, which it should be. I've suffered, and I suppose I still do suffer with depression for a number of years. I lost my third son, Charlie, back in 2009. And it's something that affected me greatly, and it affects my day-to-day life. And I found, and I swear to this day, that the one thing that saved me, as well as my family, of course, was the wrestling business. It's something that you can't. I sunk within the in the persona of Steve Saxon, and I had a lot of good people around me at the time, and wrestling really helped me to overcome that. And it's something that affects me even to this day. I'm able to control it a lot more these days, and I see the signs and the symptoms, and I know what to do and what not to do. But it's something that's taken very seriously, and it's something that's over the last few years, particularly within the wrestling fraternity, has really cropped up, and it's out there. People are not ashamed anymore to say, you know what. I've got depression.
Do you want me to tell you something though that you'd be surprised, because I think I did a little video a while back. It's just one of those days, and I did a little video about how I felt that day, and I just filmed it because I just wanted people to know that they weren't alone, and there was lots of people like this, and it wasn't a particularly very, very bad bout of it. It was quite a normal one for me, that was. I have a lot of those days, and that it got viewed by, I think in the end it's something like 25,000 people.
Wow.
Well, considering I don't have a vast amount all over my social media. There's a fair bit, but nothing to write home about. But what I did find out was, I had so many private messages from people in the wrestling business who actually said, I was shocked, absolutely shocked to death to find out that they had got bad depression or different, disorders and stuff, and who couldn't still say anything. Had managed to say to me, because I'd done that on the video, managed to tell me that, and obviously not in a million years would I ever divulge who they were, but I am telling you that I would say a couple of hundred got in touch with me, not to mention lots of people who weren't in the wrestling business, strangers who I never even knew, messaging me and talking about it. I spent the best part of 4 weeks answering messages and answering, people who I didn't know and I thought I could maybe help. Made a friend last year who was severely depressed, actually suicidal, and I've got to tell you, I'm so proud, because at this time of the year he's turned his life around now, and the day I spoke to him I thought was going to be his last day on earth, and now a year down the line he's doing brilliantly, and for me just that one person was enough to make me do that video and talk about it, and talk about depression to everybody. But you just won't believe how many people in the business have suffered with depression. I can understand why, because we live this life of highs and lows, where we're out wrestling, high as a kite on it. No drug in this world has ever hit me like wrestling's hit me. There wouldn't be a drug, any alcohol or anything in this world that give me the buzz that wrestling give me. So I can understand the highs and lows of everything.
Maybe this is your new call. Maybe this is your new call, like you were saying before, which is quite right. To be a wrestling promoter, you need to be involved in the wrestling business before.
Yeah.
99% of the time, there are the exceptions to the rule, as in, Brian Dixon, All Stars.
Of course there is, yeah.
Maybe it's a case of that if to be able to help people that suffer with depression, you need to have gone through that yourself. And from what I've been reading up about you, from conversations we've had privately between ourselves, I only know a small, amount of what you've been through in your life and why you suffered and still do suffer from depression. So maybe this is your new calling. If you've had 25,000 shares or likes or views or whatever on your video, then maybe you should keep this going. Maybe there's people out there that you don't know, you'll never meet, you may never even speak to, but they may watch your video and that might be the deciding factor in letting there be a tomorrow.
And also, if we all knew the reason why we got depressed, and then we wouldn't be depressed, because we'd be able to fix it. And it's not a total fixable thing. Your lifestyle as well. I've had I will talk about anything, and I must admit I had a really, really horrible childhood. I was abused as a young child. I was also raped by quite a well-known wrestler when I was 15, and they severely affected my life. But you know what? The real weird thing about it is wrestling has always healed me. It feels really weird to say that, but it's my safe place, wrestling is. Although I was violently raped in the wrestling business, and I actually never took this person to court, because I actually believed at the time that if I did this, I'd never be able to be in the wrestling business again. They'd kick me out of the wrestling business. And this is how much I wanted to stay within it, that I never ever, reported this to the police. Luckily, he's dead now. The day this guy died, I did a jig down the street and it showed me arse in the Vatican if I could have done. It was the most wonderful day in my life, to be said, to find out that he'd gone and he could never ever hurt anybody else again. But that's the biggest sort of thing I can say to you about how I felt about wrestling. I really wanted to stay amongst it, although something so horrible in it happened. It still was my life, and still has been all my life.
It's your safety blanket.
And that for me, that's been my safety blanket, is wrestling. That's my happy place. Whenever I go to wrestling, everybody can see, my family see the difference in me from being at home doing everyday stuff, which is fine, that this is how life is, to being at a wrestling show. That high is like nothing on earth. I don't think I could ever get a drug in the world that'd make me feel like that.
I know exactly how you feel.
Kind of feeling, and nothing's ever replaced it. I think the nearest that I ever came to replacing it was working in the youth service, working with kids who got nothing and thought they were never going to go anywhere in life. And I wanted to show them that from where I'd come from, I actually wasn't born on a council estate. I kind of say I'm from there, but I'm not. I'm from a place called Northwood, and but most of my early childhood life, I lived on Bentley on a council estate, and the things I've seen on there is unbelievable, and it's still bad to this day, you know. And to try and tell kids that they could get out of this rut and go and do something with their lives. I never thought I would do anything with my life, ever. I hated school, did nothing in school. I actually went back to school, was 36, and did GCSEs, A-level, then I started a degree. And that was at 36. So I knew I was intelligent, I knew that, but I just hadn't got the common sense to use that intelligence, you know. I just always wanted to be in the wrestling business, nothing else mattered. So, but that was the only other buzz I ever got, was watching kids come out of Bentley and do something with their life, you know, kids from anywhere do something with their life. So that was the nearest buzz to it, but nothing really like it, if I'm honest.
I mean, from my memories of you from early on, is that you were always a foster mother. Obviously, you have your own children as well. You're a mother to 3 children.
Yeah, I've got 3 children.
You know, I've got grandchildren.
I've got grandchildren, but I think I've only probably fostered about 20 kids, but over 15 years, because what happened was I started off as a foster carer of short-term children, which never works out like that. You end up having kids for a lot longer, and you know, I had a couple of children for several years at that then their mum passed away, so I kind of kept them with me, if you know what I mean. But yeah. Yes, I've fostered. I've done all sorts of stuff like that. Took them into my home, and it was quite rewarding. As I got older and I came down to Weymouth, I was too ill to actually contemplate doing it then, because I was so heavy at the time when I moved down here, and started suffering even more with depression, that I decided it was best just to not do it anymore, you know. But I do miss it, and I actually miss the youth service, but I'm kind of getting busy again around the wrestling, and love what I'm doing, you know. So.
And of course, you've got your own, you know, your own grandchildren now in your life, and of course they're going to take up your time, your attention as well. Do you still stay in touch with any of the foster children you looked after over the 15 years?
Yeah. There's a couple in Stoke-on-Trent. That I still talk to. I think because I'm down here, I don't see them. I will probably see them, but when I go up to Stoke, I meet up with a couple of them and a couple of the mums and stuff. So I've really, you know, I've kept in touch and stuff. But I just at the time I needed to get away from it because I was quite poorly, you know. I've sort of had lots of ups and downs with health, and at the minute I'm the best I've ever been. So.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I see that. I think everybody sees that. I mean, you see, you do like your up days, you have your down days, good days, bad days, and we do see that because you are an open book on social media, which I think is great. A lot of people. There's a couple of good friends to me. Do you know Dylan Roberts, one of the wrestlers?
Who?
Dylan Roberts.
Yes, I do.
You know,
yeah.
Dylan's a great guy. He's one of my best friends. I really love him. I love his family to bits. But he's constantly on my case about the amount that I use social media. I use it far too much. And, you know, I probably do. But I enjoy it because it is a platform where I'm a stay-at-home dad. I've got 3 kids. I stay at home. Okay, my boys are in school all day. I've got my little girl that I've got to pick up in about half an hour's time from now. And I'm with her all day. So for me, it's that interaction with other adults. That's what it is.
Steve,
okay,
that is a job, what you're doing. You know what I mean? That is totally a job. And social media, whatever anybody says about it, I'm going to tell you something now about it. Social media's actually saved my life, and it sounds such a dramatic thing to say, so dramatic, but once I came down here, once I split up with my partner, who was also in the wrestling business, you remember him, Justin Starr.
I do.
We split up, and once again down to me being depressed, bad health, you know, everything that I shoved people away, and it was just nasty. And now, I mean, I don't know if everybody knows, not everybody will know, but I had a gastric bypass 2 years ago. It's 2 years ago, and at the time I was 28 stone, and I couldn't actually have the bypass at first because I was too ill to have it. So I had what they call a gastric balloon, which I had inserted in my stomach, which was I was one of the few people in this country to have it done because it's actually Australian, and I had it done over here because I was so ill, and my diabetes was so bad. So I had this thing which was horrendous. It's the most horriblest thing. It makes your breath smell like shit, and it makes you vomit every day. But it made me lose 6 stone, which then I was fit to have this gastric bypass. I had the gastric bypass, never looked back. I've just hit the 15 stone mark. I've lost the 15 stone.
That's amazing.
From 28.
That's absolutely amazing.
I'm doing really, really well. My health is the best it's ever been. My mental health, no, but I don't think you ever get over your eating disorders and stuff. And I have got an eating disorder still to this day. I actually attend. I actually go to Overeaters Anonymous, and it sounds quite strange, but it lets me feel that I'm not on my own. You know what I mean? So yeah. This is so new to me, being my body being the way I am, the way I can actually sit, stand, react to things. It's just a total biggest shock to the system you'd ever have. And for people who haven't had it, you'll never understand it. But for people who have, it's totally saved my life. I believe now I wouldn't be living. I do, because I was so ill all the time. And now things, silly, simple things like crossing your legs. And yeah, I'd go in a ring and wrestle and do perfectly well in there. But outside, that person, I just shrivel up. I was dying inside, telling everybody I felt great being fat. What a load of bollocks. I felt like shit on a daily basis. And I do not believe in saying to other people, you need to lose weight, you need to do this, you need to put weight on. I believe you've got a choice in life to be whatever you want to be. And if you want to be 20 stone and you're happy, then it's down to you. Get on with it and do it and live your life the way you want to live. But for me, it was about, I was going to die if I didn't do something about it. And I wanted to see my kids grow up, my grandkids grow up. And at 55, I've got a bloody hell of a lot of living to do yet, and I want to live it. So for me to do this and to lose this weight, I'm by no means any skinny. I'm still heavy, but my life has totally changed for the better in my health. And I can't sort of say that enough. I can't thank the people enough who saved my life, and they did, And also now, with my ex-partner Justin Starr, we all have a fabulous relationship. We all get on well, and life is far better than it ever was. So doing what I did was the best day's work I've done.
You're an absolute inspiration, Jay. I mean, but what you said there, you absolutely are. I remember being sat in Spain a couple of years ago, maybe 18 months ago, with my partner, and we came across a couple from down south that we didn't know from Adam. We got talking to them, and this woman was, she must have been about, I don't know, 50, 55, but she looked really good, and she was so slim, it was unbelievable. She opened her phone and showed me a photo of maybe 4 or 5 years prior, and she was 30-something stone. She was huge, and you wouldn't even, you couldn't tell it was the same person. And I remember saying, well, I got a friend, Klondyke Kate, former wrestler, and I said, she's going through the exact same thing right now. And it was at the time when I think you had the balloon, and you were, again, you're an open book, so I kind of knew that what you were going through, and you were going through hell. And she said, what, as long as she can get through this stage, she will come out the other side, and she will be a brand new woman. So, because but it's all down to you, though. You've had a lot of people helping you out, Jane. Yeah, and that's great, fantastic. There's people there to help, you and people like you. But the hard work came from you.
Do you know the one thing I can actually say? Usually, having bariatric surgery is, you're always worried about the surgery, but the balloon was the worst thing for me. The surgery was okay, but sadly, I had really poor aftercare, and I kind of had to go online. This is why I love social media, because I found people on there that had the same thing done, because I actually had very little aftercare with this hospital, who eventually I complained about, and I know I come across as a complainer on Facebook sometimes, but I'm actually very dubious to go to places and say, well, I'm not happy about this, but I actually had to, because I thought if this happens to somebody else and they haven't got the savvy to sort of kind of help themselves, it could have dire consequences. So I relied on social media for my aftercare, and managed to look after myself. And it's only now, 2 years down the line, that the place I had my surgery done have realised that they've dropped dropped a big bollock, you know, and they should have been giving me the care. And now I care for myself, so I think, well, you can go get stuffed. I don't care.
And those people that should have gave you that care, are they now making changes for?
Yeah,
They'll make changes for other
good,
people.
because that's for the better.
Yes.
That's for the next person that comes along. But now, by the sound of things are going, people, the surgery wasn't all. It's always been well known, but they only give it to so many people. But what they're actually doing now, they're deciding to give people this surgery. And then they have got to look after themselves afterwards. They've got to, because this surgery is going to be on the national health, and then these people can't just get big again, because some people do actually get big again. But I am determined with my hand on my heart, never again to be that person I was before, as in size and problem. No, never. So if I can do it, anybody can, because I've got the willpower of a gnat. I've got no willpower.
Is it a daily battle for you, Jay?
Yeah, every day is a battle, because I've now got my appetite. But I didn't have an appetite for 12 months. I had no appetite for food at all, and I used to have to force myself to eat. I used to have to put an alarm on to eat because it made me sick. And now my appetite's back. And also the sad thing about it is, it isn't the good things you can keep down, it's the shit you can keep down, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
You can eat chocolate and it'll stay down, but you go and have something healthy. I ate chicken last night, I was sick, you know, but if I'm naughty and I have a crunchy or something like that, I can keep that down. It's the weirdest thing. It's so contradictory, but it's still the best thing I've ever done. Everybody lapses, we all lapse, but the lapsing is how often you lapse and how you do it, you know, and how you get back on the wagon.
Yeah, how you control yourself. I suppose it's a little bit like an alcoholic. There's different sorts of alcoholics, and you have some alcoholics that can never have a drink. They have treatment, they can never have another drink. Well, you have other alcoholics that kind of control it and say, well, you know what, I have a good friend that lives in my street who is this sort of alcoholic. You know, he is an alcoholic, self-confessed, sorted himself out, but he can still go and enjoy 1 or 2 pints, but he'll never ever go beyond that. He knows when to stop. So I suppose it's okay to have your little cheats every now and then, as long as you know that what you're doing. And you know that it can only be a little treat, a little cheat.
That's right. But where the head thing comes in with me, because I suffer from depression as well, my depression when I was at my heaviest was my comfort was food, always. To this day it's still food, but what happens with me now, I literally cannot force food down me unless I'm really ill. And the consequences are not just being sick, the consequences are a thing called dumping, where you're sick. It makes you ill, as in if you've got a bug, you know what I'm talking about, you know, both ends, that kind of thing. It makes you physically ill and drains you, and makes you so ill that you have to go to bed. It's that bad. It's not just, oh, I'll be sick because I've had food, you know, I've had shit. It's not that. It doesn't work like that. So for me, what happens to me is on my darkest sort of days, food is still my comfort, but I know now when I've had enough and I have to stop, because if I ever burst, I can burst my stomach, and then that is death straight away. Sounds very dramatic again, but
it's serious. It's very serious.
You can do. You're gone. You know what I mean?
Do you find that when you do have your down days, and when you do get not when you do get depressed, obviously, you know, you are depressed, but when you have your down days, do you class eating as kind of like a punishment to yourself? You know that you shouldn't be doing it, but you do it because you're punishing yourself.
Yeah, it's a punishment. You still feel, you still do it. What I tend to do is I've got this thing where if I've I with somebody or I'm slightly down. I don't mean rock bottom, because rock bottom I'm in bed. I'm bedridden. It's as simple as that. But when food's my comfort, what I do is I fall out with Connor, and I find myself looking through the cupboards and the food cupboards and stuff like that. And then what I'll do is the logic in my head then says, sod off, you know, you don't want this, and shut the door. I could never do that before. I can now. You know, I can open my fridge 20 times a day, but only take something out of it twice. You know, so whereas before I could not control my eating, and I'm not belittling people who say, you know, well, I'm a big girl, but I eat nothing. I can't believe that. I find that very, very hard to believe, unless there is some medical something medically wrong.
Yeah.
But I was just a fat, greedy bastard. It was as simple as that. That's the only way I can say it to you. I was greedy, and food was my comfort, but I couldn't help it, as do many, many, many people who are in the same situation. I would never, ever belittle anybody having anything wrong about eating and being big. I find these programs on TV where they're looking for the most vulnerable people to film, big people who haven't got a lot of common sense to look after themselves and nobody to look after them. And, they're ridiculing these people, and they're just making the whole of people who are obese look foolish, and making us look like we don't know what day of the week it is. Well, that's not, that's wrong. I am totally all there, as in what I need to do and what I don't need to do. But doing it, it's that thing in your brain that tells you, go on, go do it. It doesn't matter, but it does matter, So
it's that little devil on your shoulder, isn't he? That devil always going to be there.
God, and it's always going to be there, always. But I've got to think to myself, what feels better? Me sitting down eating a big bar of chocolate, or me feeling good in myself that day, that my health's okay, that my sugar's great, my diabetes is controlled, or do I want to feel like shit all day after I've eaten some chocolate? And the answer is, I want to feel good, because this feels better than food. It really does,
That's fantastic, yeah. That's amazing. It really is great to see how you turn your life around. I mean, I remember hearing you say, or overhearing you perhaps saying to certain guys where, as you said before, your weight never bothered you. You were quite happy to be 20, 25, 28 stone, and obviously that was a lie on your part, as you just said then. And it's good that you've been able to recognise that. You've gone out, you've done something, you've put in the hard work, you've put in the commitments. You didn't have the aftercare that you needed and you should have had, so you went out and you found it for yourself. And now you're here today, healthier than you've ever been, lighter than you've been for a very, very long time. You're literally half the woman you used to be, Jay. And now you're getting back involved in your passion in life, which is the wrestling business. But also, I will say again, I think this might be your new calling in life. You love social media, you love being able to write things on there, doing your videos. There's people out there that are in the same, or have been in the same boat as you, and I really think you should look at actually getting out and help. You've always been somebody to care and help the people, whether it be children, whether it be people in the business. I'd usually consider taking this forward and trying to do something more with this.
It's been called being a nosy bastard. No, I do understand. The funny thing is, I need to say this because it's quite a big deal. Roy Knight made a Facebook page, and I feel desperate because at the moment I can't remember what he's called it, but it's about depression, and lots and lots of people have joined it and speak on it, and I've joined it as well, and I've put a few things on now and again, and Roy has been so, just like me, very, very open, and I think he's found it a lot harder than I have to be open about it. But what he's doing now is helping people in his area as well by running a group where he goes and meets people and they sit and talk about it. And I think that is absolutely fantastic, because somebody of Roy's standing who, like me, curtain goes back, out we go, we get on and wrestle and do all that stuff. Then we go back, and maybe 2 hours later we're in bed feeling like death, and for him to be able to speak up and say about his life and about how his depression has affected him, I think that's really brave of him, because he's found it really hard. Whereas for me, that feels like therapy to me. I find that very cathartic to go to talk about it. I obviously don't want to ram it down people's throats to talk about it to people who are obviously interested in listening about it, but that also gives me a therapy. So, and in a way, I'm kind of being selfish, because it helps me big time. It really helps me to talk about things. So, to getting other people who probably wouldn't speak about it to talk about it and feel a little better in themselves about getting it off the chest, then if that, like I say, if one person I help, then I've done what I set out to do.
What I will do is I will find the link to that Facebook page that.
Please.
I'll put it on the notes of this podcast, and I'll put it out on our social media as well, so it is out there as well. But as well as Roy, just one person that I do want to mention is Harvey Dale, who runs Hope Wrestling. He's
Oh,
been
yeah.
very, very open on social media. He's going through a rough time at the moment. He has been for a while, and he again, just like yourself, he's an open book. He seems to go through stages where he'll go completely silent, and then all of a sudden there'll be loads on social media about what he's been going through, and he has no problem asking people for help and telling people that, look, I'm really down at the moment. I need help.
Yeah.
Talk to me. Somebody pop up. And he's starting this new project, and I've got Harvey booked in for one of these interviews in the next couple of weeks because he's got a new project called Wrestling with Depression, where he's actually going around and he's getting people together who, wrestlers, personalities within the business that suffer with depression.
I know about it, Steve, because originally I was going to get on board. You know, you just actually shocked me because I didn't realise that he was, is he the founder of Hope Promotion?
He is, yes.
I didn't even know that. I didn't know, but
He is.
I had been speaking to him, but he sort of went off my radar for a while, and I didn't realise he was. But what a brilliant thing going
absolutely.
back, talking to people.
And I think that, again, the social media platform has allowed him to actually put his voice out there and say, look, I suffer from this. I am suffering right now with this. I need your help. And then in turn, he's turned all that around, and now he's going to be able to help a load more people that are suffering with the same thing. So he says, and I said, I've got Harvey on in the next couple of weeks on here, so we will go more into that. No doubt your name will go up as well.
Oh, I will listen.
So I'll give you a nod when that's ready to go.
You know, the thing is as well, just while we're on the subject, I remember saying on Facebook at one time, wrestlers come away and they come to a wrestling show to work. That might be the only time they've got their heads around anything. You know, they sit in the locker. None of us know what's going on, in their lives. So when they come to shows, let us all be kind to each other and get on and do, I mean, I like I say, I fall out with Jesus, I would, I'm the kind of person that falls out with all sorts of people. But as I've got older and got through this, getting through this depression and stuff and the weight and everything, I kind of realised that, people are going through many, many things that are private, and they come away to a wrestling show to work, and they're sat in that dressing room, we're all chatting away, and sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not okay, and I think, why don't we all just be kind to each other and listen to each other, because at some point, they'll have had a shit time, and this might be their only escape, like it was for me, so I think that's what we should do, is be kind to each other. We're all a community, and we should all, it's okay having an opinion, and it's alright being an arsehole, but at the end of the day, you've got to realise there are a million arseholes out there, but we all need love and attention and affection and being kind to. So I think we should all do it with each other and just be kind. No, we shouldn't all do it with each other. We should be kind to each other. That's what I mean.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I couldn't agree anymore. One thing that my old mum used to say to me is, whenever you're walking down the street, smile at everybody you pass, because they will smile back at you, and it might be the only opportunity they've had to smile on that day.
That's right.
And I still do that to this day. I live in a beautiful little village called Penford, North Wales, where everybody knows everybody's business. And I walk down. I'll walk up to collect my daughter from playgroup, and I'll pass a dozen or so people. I'll know half of those people, but I'll smile at every single one of them, and they all smile back. And it's nice to know that might be it's not nice to know that might be the opportunity to have to smile that day, but it's nice to know that you've raised that smile on their face just by being polite, by being courteous.
Well, that's how I'd like to think I am as me, as Jane, walking down the street. I've got to tell you, Weymouth is not the friendliest of places. I think they caught you off if you kept smiling every day here. But it's worth a try. It's really worth a try, so.
And why not? Right, Jane, it has been an absolute pleasure. Before we go, we have got to wrap up now, because we've been going now for nearly an hour and a half, and I could spend all day talking to you, and I hope that in the future we can get you back on the show once I've got a bit more experience as well. Some better questions for you, maybe. Right, I want to do something very quick here that I'm going to do with everybody, which is just a few quick fire questions. Just the first thing that pops into your head. So I'm going to run through these now, and then we'll wrap up. So the first one, the best male worker in the UK at the moment.
Best male worker?
Yep.
Oh my God, put me on the spot there. Best male worker. Oh, Steve. Fucking hell. There's no. The minute I go, I know I'll say somebody. Best male worker. Who do I like? Who do I love? Oh, I can't help it. I've got to say James Mason.
That's not a bad call at all. I love James Mason. An absolutely amazing work. He's been in the business forever, and he still goes as strong now as he did when he first got in. Best female worker in the UK.
Viper.
That was obvious. The one to watch.
Ooh, one to watch.
Who's going to be making big waves within the next 12 months, 2 years?
Oh, do you know what? I'm going to say it and people will go, he's shite, but he isn't shite. I really like him. Rob Shaw.
Rob Shaw. I know Rob. He's worked for me a couple of times. He's
I
a
love
really
him.
nice
I
lad.
love
Really
his
nice lad.
way.
I love his gimmick. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Good choice, that.
Chinned him, nearly knocked his head off.
I did see the photograph where you got him in a headlock. I did see that on Facebook.
Really slapped him on. Really odd.
Okay, Grado or Big Daddy?
My friend will kill me. Jane will kill me. I've got to say, Grado. She'll kill me.
Controversial.
Big Daddy's daughter's going to kill me.
Oh, I love Jane. I love Jane. Mask or Haystacks? Haystacks. You know what? Just very, very quickly. Jane, of course, Jane Wade, the daughter of Big Daddy. Her daughter, Big Daddy's granddaughter, is now training with Marty Jones to become a wrestler. I had an email about a month ago now from the granddaughter of Giant Haystacks that lives in Rill, who's going to be joining the North Wales Wrestling Dojo, which is the Britannia Wrestling Promotions training school in Rill. How amazing that! 10 years down the line, we could see Big Daddy Giant Haystacks female version.
Yeah, there's my daughter training with Marty Jones. There's Jane's daughter, Big Daddy's granddaughter, and Haystacks. Well, that's going to be a good little.
That's going to be crazy.
Good little show, isn't it? Eventually.
And you know, the great thing is, well, all females. All females.
Yeah, all females. Brilliant. Yeah.
Now, coming off World of Sport, Alex Shea or Jim Ross?
Jim Ross.
Oh, every time. Every time. I like Alex, but yeah, every time.
Yeah.
Stoke or Weymouth?
Oh God. Got to get killed here. Weymouth.
I choose North Wales over Stoke every time as well, I've got to say. I love Stoke. I love going home to Stoke to visit. I love to go watch wrestling in Stoke, but it doesn't compare to Penaford and North Wales. No, God, no. Last one now. World of Sport or WWE UK?
Oh, for God's sake, should you even have to ask me that? World of Sport.
World of Sport.
Every time.
Every time.
Every time.
Right, Jane, it's been an absolute pleasure. Like I said, I could talk to you all day long. I hope to see you on the 26th of March at the Leeds Wrestlers Reunion.
I'll be
the
there.
first time I'm actually making an effort, I'm going to get over there. I'm going to get to see you and some of the old guys, and I'm really, really looking forward to that.
Get up because you will enjoy it. You'll really enjoy it because if you like talking to people, which you do, I know you do, you'll have a brilliant day with them all. And none of them are stuck up their own arse. They're brilliant. It's all really, really good day.
I've only ever heard good things about it, and I'm really looking forward to getting over for that as well. It's on Mothering Sunday as well, so I'm child free, so I've got the green light to do it. Jane, we will hook up again. I look forward to seeing you in person again. Thank you very much. I wish you all good luck with your autobiography. I hope to hear more from you on social media, which I think is an absolute given with you.
Oh, that's for sure.
But whatever you decide to do, stay healthy, stay happy, and we'll be on the road again sometime soon. Thank you very much, Jane.
Thanks, darling.
And there we have it, the second half of the Klondyke Kate interview finally done. I told you it'd be well worth a listen. Bet you're glad that you stuck around now. I will make sure that all future interviews are condensed just a little bit. That's down to me and not the people I'm interviewing. The future episodes will be around an hour to an hour and a half, absolute max, because I find that when I listen to podcasts, that's about the time that I'm looking for when I'm downloading episodes to fit into my life. We will be back. We will be back just before WrestleMania. Mike Holland, Chris Dutton and I will be getting together to give our predictions on WrestleMania, our thoughts on WrestleMania, and about everything else that's been going on in the wrestling industry, from America to Canada to Mexico to Japan to Britain to Europe to Australia, wherever there's something going on that's hot and needs talking about in the wrestling industry, we will cover it. So, a lot going on heading into WrestleMania already. There's a lot already on my list of things to talk about. So make sure you come back to us, subscribe to us on iSax Wrestling Podcast, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and YouTube, and make sure you keep up with all the updates. Thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for being patient. This has been episode 2 of the iSax Wrestling Podcast, and we'll see you soon.
You have been listening to the iSax Wrestling Podcast. Follow Steve Saxon on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at iSax Podcast. And remember to subscribe and 5-star rate this podcast on iTunes. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Saxon has left the building.